Hi, Yuri. So, in our last lesson, we began talking about how we can write algorithms as pseudocode. Now, in this lesson, we are going to start to write pseudocode for the first time. It can be quite tricky and it can be quite exact, but when we're writing computer programs, which this isn't yet, by the way, we really do have to be exact. Otherwise, the computer won't be able to read what it is that we're writing. So, this gives us a good opportunity to practice writing code in a low stakes environment. Here on our screens, we've got uh, two constructs really. We've got two types of iteration, one called the count controlled loop on the left, and the other called a condition controlled loop on the right. In the middle, we've got some selection too, and we're actually going to start to learn how to write pseudocode for all of those programming constructs. And remember, there are two types of iteration: count controlled and condition controlled. The count controlled is called a for loop, and a condition controlled is called a while loop. And like I said, we're going to start by writing some pseudocode based off of these blocks of code. And then you're going to go off and practice doing the same. We're going to start with the for loop. When we've got a block of code there and we want to translate it to pseudocode, which is what you're going to have to do, we're going to, well, first off, begin with start on line 1, followed by this line of code. Because a count controlled loop is also known as a for loop, well, we're going to write the word for at the beginning. But we're going to say for count in range 1 to 3. The reason we're writing it like that is because when we're writing in Python next year, that is the line of code that you would use. The instruction goes on line 3, so it's moved forwards. The only difference is that it's indented. That is, that it's moved away from the start of the line. The reason we do this is so the computer knows, or that we know, what actually needs to be repeated is indented, just there. So this bit of code will tell the computer that we need to move forwards 3 times. Notice how the block code also gives you this help by going, well, look, that instruction is 1 space away from the start, just as this is there. We could actually look at what the difference would be if we didn't have an indentation for one of those instructions. I'm going to tell you that that first block of code will get the van to move forwards and then turn left 3 times. So it would move forwards, turn left, move forwards, turn left, move forwards, turn left. In actual fact, if I do that here, so I'll do that, go on, forwards, left, forwards, left, forwards, left. And there you go, that's done it for 3 times. So the van's gone from here to here. Whereas this block of code won't do the same thing. What would happen is that whatever's indented will repeat 3 times, but that there is not indented. Let me show you what happens. I'm going to tell you that it would move forwards, not once, not twice, but 3 times. So it would end up about there somewhere. And then it would just turn left once. So just because we forgot that indentation, we've moved our van in a completely different position to the one that it was before. The while loop is very similar to the for loop. We are still going to use a type of iteration, but because this one has a condition attached to it, the vocabulary that we're going to use is called while. So we're literally just going to say while not at destination. So while we're not at our destination, we want the van to move forwards. And it will just continue doing that until it is at its destination. That's it. Again, notice that the block gives you that clue about where that indentation should be. And the if statement does exactly the same thing. But thankfully, with the if statement, we don't actually need to change any of the wording. Block code, if it says if road exists forwards, so does your pseudocode. When we're mixing constructs, though, notice how we're going to have to use indentation really precisely. For example, start and the while loop currently are on at 0 position, right? There's no indentation necessary there. As soon as we get to the if statement, though, that's been indented once. So that's why it gets indented once using our tab key. We're then going to use 2 indents to get to our instruction to move forwards. There's 1 and there's 2 there. Those indentations are really, really important for you to get right. Because if we don't, like we learned in the previous slides, it's just going to mean that our van ends up in a completely different place to where we intended.